Hello YouTube. So I wanted to do a second video, just because I have some time, and Conference Report was kind enough to make a video response to me like a week ago. I just never got around to making another one, or making one back to him. But in it he talks about the leap of faith, scenarios and situations within which something like faith is has to be invoked in order to move forward, whatever that might mean in any given situation. I'm going to turn myself around because bad lighting. Okay. Um, so it's it seems to me that there are contexts within which something like faith necessarily has to be invoked. It isn't sufficient, or something like a purely mechanistic view of the world sort of ceases to be sufficient, and you have to do something mad, right? You have to do something that doesn't follow from the real situation of the world. You have to plunge into the absurd, and I think that there are two examples of this that I can point to. First of all, I think marriage is an example of something like a true moment of madness. If you look at the world and how many marriages end, how marriage almost never works out. Anything could happen to you or your partner to make it not work anymore. But at the same time, marriage does imply something like a declaration of for life, right? This is a bond or a commitment that's made for life. It seems to me that that kind of claim is impossible. It's impossible to make that claim without a dimension of absurdity. And the reason why it's impossible is again because work out. There are plenty of situations within which marriage doesn't work out, and you just don't know what's coming at you hurtling at you from the future. So it has to be a claim that's made not only on insufficient evidence, but a claim that's made against evidence, right? Against all reason. And I think that there's something profoundly beautiful about that, in a certain way. I think there's something incredible about saying, I know how, I'm fully aware of why what I'm doing doesn't make sense, and yet here I stand, sort of defying the fates, right? Defying the universe, defying, in defiance of the future, and I declare this contra that, right? In the name of love. This is an insane thing to do. I've never, I'm not married, and I who knows if I'll ever get married. But the fact is, it's I do admire that in a certain way. I think that there's a nobility in that, or a radicality in that. That's heroic. That's the word that I would put there. And absolutely insane. The other example that I would give is having children, for very similar reasons. I think that at least when there's a decision to have a child, I think we're ready to be parents, so let's have a kid, right? That kind of line of reasoning. That seems to me to take an incredible amount of faith. For me at least, even being around small children, I get anxious because children are in terms of psychological development, extremely fragile beings. Um, they're extremely, you know, there's like a butterfly effect that's always threatening around children, right? Like you step on a butterfly, or you put some germ of an idea into a small child's head, um, totally by accident, and then that blooms into them being, some serial killer or something. I mean, it's obviously not that fragile, but it's still like more fragile than I'm comfortable with. Um, I think that it's really I think that being around small children is nerve-wracking. um, and having a child of my own, like that, knowing what I know about developmental psychology, it seems to me to be a a, a really brash thing to do. Um, and you can explain in material terms, why do people like to have children. That's an easy, you know thing to explain. But on the other hand, like the actual experience of deciding to have a child, um, it's an experience that I don't think I can relate to, and I think that it's an insane move for someone to make. Um, I think that there's, either it's an insane move, and this is the case with marriage too. Either it's an insane move, or it's a naive and irresponsible move. Um, there's something like, just not, either you don't take into account the reality of it, because you don't really know, or you don't really care, or you're too caught up in emotional ties, or something like that. And this is a kind of naivety, but I think that there's a higher form of both of these, of like, I know everything that's wrong with this decision, and yet here I stand making it anyway, right? Like there's a more profound, um, my video might have just glitched, but there's a more profound and heroic pathos at work in doing these things in a kind of defiance of the fates. And I think that the I think that there is something like a heroic faith present, or a faith that is a condition of possibility for heroism. Right. Somebody pointed out that, or I've heard someone point out before, that to be one of the first three guys to start a union, is you have to be insane, right? Like you can't reduce that rationally. You can only do it like by appealing to ethics, right? And this should be right, right? Or like this is right, like we have to do this. But it's not an issue of like weighing out the goods and the bads, because nothing, it's such a self-sacrificial and insane move, that you seem to have to be able to affirm like this will work, um, uh, in order to get there. Now, there's no reason to actually believe that this will work, um, but you have to do it, right? Or people have had to do it, um, and I think there's something heroic and very beautiful in that. So this is why I get really hesitant when my fellow atheists want to throw out entirely, the notion of faith. I think that it's something that can be rehabilitated. Um, I don't think that it's something that's, I think that it loses everything when you take it as an epistemic issue of, this is belief elevated to the status of knowledge about propositions about the world, or something like that, where it's not even really that, it's that which moves you, or it's that which is required for your movement in certain situations. And the leap of faith, the Indiana Jones one that you pointed to is a great example as well. It's another kind of heroic faith, or heroic gesture of faith. So yeah, those are some thoughts that I had on your video. And have a good day.